Hi guys and welcome back to my channel. It is time to update my palette yet again. This is one of my absolute favorite projects, mainly because it is focused on eyeshadows, but also because I just love working on a palette and finishing it to completion, or at least as close to completion as I can. That is kind of what I'm doing on my project. I know some people aim to hit pan on their palettes, some people just want to rotate through the palettes, but my palette project is kind of like the OG traditional way where you try to finish a palette in a year. The palettes that I'm working on, I'm actually working on two palettes. Is one that I worked on last year and I wasn't able to finish, so I rolled it over to this year. But since I only had matte shades and like quite deep and dark shades in that palette, I decided to also create a BYOP to go with it. So those are the two palettes that I'm working on at the moment. So I'm really excited to share with you the progress on the two palettes. I feel like I've done a pretty good job with both of them this month. So yeah, it's probably one of my more exciting updates in a while. So I'm going to jump into the update itself. But before I do that, if you're new here, please consider subscribing. I would love to have you in the family. Let's jump into the video. So the first palette that I'm working on is this one right here. This is the Soft Glam palette from Anastasia. I'm rolling the footage of what it has looked like since I first rolled it in, so you can see. And I only had a couple of shades, like I said at the beginning of the year, but I did go ahead and franken it just so I had some more variety and also some lighter shades to work on. This one has been a really easy palette to incorporate into every day, just because it is mainly a neutral palette, and I was working on a lot of the frankens, to be honest, throughout the year, just because the deeper shades are just ones that I don't really reach for that often. I do ideally want to finish everything in here though, apart from the black. I have decided that the black is not something that I want to work on, again because I don't really go for super deep looks, and also I just don't really use a black on the day-to-day. I have throughout the year been able to finish up obviously a lot of the frankens, and I did re-franken it as well, and some of the original shades in here I have been able to finish before the last update as well. I know for a fact that I had finished up Sienna and Orange Soda at the last update, and I was working on a couple more shades to finish throughout the frankens that were remaining in here. Hopefully by now I can show you what the palette looks like last month. So I did have quite a few frankens that I wanted to work on, as well as one of the original shades called Dusty Rose. That was one that I wanted to finish as well. And I'm really happy with the progress that I have in this palette, because this is what it looks like today. So I feel like it has moved quite a bit, and I will talk you through everything in a second, but I will let you look at the overview for a little bit longer. So yeah, this is the palette now. Big changes I would say from last month, and I will go through the palette in order and what I have done in here. So I will have up the comparisons here because I think it's easier for you to look at than me holding up the palette. So we're going to start off with the first shade in the palette, which is a Franken shade, and it's in the place of Sultry, and that is a mix between Mulberry at the very end of the top row and the shade Champs from my BYOP, which I will talk about later of course. And my goal this past month was to finish the shade, but unfortunately I didn't quite get there. I am wearing this one today like on my inner crease and also kind of blending everything out. I'm wearing quite a few different shades today from my two Pana palettes, but I wasn't quite able to get there, but I'm really close. It is super thin in here. Hopefully you can see that, like just how thin it is. I honestly feel like this one has maybe 2 or 3 uses max, depending on how much I use in each look. So I'm very close, and this one will definitely be done very soon. I am actually filming this one on the 29th of the month, so I do have 2 more days before the end of the month. So technically I think I could finish this one before the end of October, but I will just kind of cut off the month here as I'm filming this video today, and then whatever progress I will have will be shown in next update. I am planning to franken some more of this shade in an upcoming video. I might even film that today or tomorrow, just because I do like this one quite a lot, and it's a good way for me to use Mulberry, because Mulberry is just very deep on its own, and it's also very firmly pressed shadow, so it is like it doesn't show much progress when I use it, but obviously refrankening it kind of makes it easier to get through. So I will go ahead and do one of these again, because I'm trying to finish again both Mulberry and Champs, so it's a good way to kind of make some more variety and an easy everyday crease shade. Then next to that we actually had a shade, but we don't have it anymore, and that was my brow shade. So this here was a mix between Cypress Umber, NYX Cream, and a white shadow. So the NYX Cream is originally from my BYOP, but it's kind of been gone, but it's a little bit left in here still. And then Cypress Umber is obviously the deeper shade below it. So this one was one that I wanted to finish, and I used this one, like I said, in my brows, and I actually finished it one yesterday. So today I'm wearing a different shadow in my brows. Probably not like the perfect match, but it works for today's look. So this shadow took me a long time to finish. In the past month I reached for it 21 additional times for a total of 109 uses to finish. So again, a very high number. And those 109 uses will now go into both my Cypress Umber and NYX Cream Shadow as like separate uses, because I have not finished the shadow. That's kind of how I work with my Franken shadows. I don't count the uses until they're done, but I have added that into my spreadsheet now with those extra uses. So really happy, and I did have the goal to finish this one, so I did complete that goal. Then lastly, on the top row we do have that shade Mulberry, and this one I have reached for 4 times in the past month, so a tiny bit, but again it doesn't move very much, so I don't think you're going to see any difference in the pan, but I'm happy that I was able to reach for it 4 times. Moving on to the second row, the first shade we have to talk about is Dusty Rose, which is another one that I wanted to finish in the past month, and I am very happy again to say that I was able to do that. It took me 9 additional uses to finish this shade, and this shadow is now completely done. I had a Franken, actually I have 2 Frankens with this shadow throughout the year, but those 2 are all done as well. And adding everything up, so the uses from last year, the uses from this year, and the Franken uses, this shadow took me 147 uses to finish to completion. So that is Dusty Rose, and that means another I should empty for the year, because again, all of the shadow from this pan is now finished. The next shadow we have, we're gonna jump over to the spot of Sienna, and this is another Franken shadow. It is a mix between Rustic, which is the shade next to it, and then the NYX Cream shade again. And this is actually the only cream shadow that I have, or the only shadow that I have left from that cream shadow from NYX. So once this Franken is done, the NYX shadow will also be done, but obviously I'm not quite there yet. However, I did have a goal this past month to pan on the shadow, and I'm happy to say that I was able to do that as well. It took me 2 additional uses to pan on it for a total of 3 since I Frankened it. It's really not very deep, so that's why it's very quick to, I guess, hit pan on. But I do still have a decent amount of product left in here, but I am hopeful I can finish the shadow in the next month, which would mean again that NYX shadow is done. But for now I only have 3 uses on it in total, so still quite low. Then we're moving on to Rustic, which I'm actually going to skip over because I didn't use this at all. This is the only shadow in the palette that I didn't use at all. I actually love this shadow. It's probably one of my favorites that are still left in this palette, especially out of the original shadows. This is my favorite. But I've been going for a lot more cool tone looks because of the shadows that I was working on in here, both Dusty Rose and that Franken shadow. That is like the mix with Mulberry and the Champs shade. That is more of a kind of cool tone shade. Again, it's what I'm wearing on my inner crease today. And also my product Level Up is the Rose Quartz palette from Huda Beauty, which is also more cool toned. So this shadow just didn't go with whatever I was panning, which is why I don't have any uses on it. But I am still really hopeful that I can finish this shadow because it is very thin in the pan. Then the last 2 shadows in the palette are the ones that I usually struggle with the most. We do have Cypress Umber, which I did reach for 3 times in the past month, so there might be a little bit of a difference, probably not too much though. But I also do have those Franken uses which is added in, but I won't I will tally everything up when the shadow is completed. But 3 uses in the shadow on its own, and I will go ahead and use this one to make a new Franken as well. I will make a new brow shade that I can use throughout the next 2 months of the year, and hopefully that way I will get a lot of progress on this shadow, because it is again super thin there. I don't know how well you can pick that up, but yeah, both of these shadows are very thin. So I think after Franken that one, I will really focus on it in the next month to try to use as much as I can, because I feel like after Franking that brow shade again, I will not have very much left of this one. So I think if I hone in on it, it might be done soon. I don't know if I'm going to aim for that in the next month or in the next 2 months, but I am determined to have this one done before the end of the year. And then lastly we have Noir, which is a shadow that I'm not really focusing on finishing, but I did reach for it twice. I'm actually wearing this one today, a little bit in my very outer corner. I'm also wearing Cypress Umber and Mulberry in this look, but I'm just kind of showing progress on Noir. If I can hit pan out before the end of the year, that would be amazing. But I'm honestly not too fussed with the shadow, but 2 more uses on it and we still don't have pan. So that is this palette right here. I will go through the goals for this palette in a second, or well after I've gone through the BYOP and the weights. But this is what it looks like now, and I'm really happy with the progress and how far I've come with this one in the past month. So let's move on to the second palette, which is my BYOP. I'm gonna roll the footage again on what this one has looked like since the introduction. I do have 9 full-size kind of single shadows from a couple different brands, and then also 3 mini shadows from Colourpop. And I did also again use that NYX shade at the bottom when I Frankened it at the beginning of the year, so you can see what it looks like after Frankening. And I have worked on this palette a lot, and these shadows are obviously quite big. I don't know how much like are in each shadow, like how many grams. I think a lot of these have like 2 grams in it, so that's quite a lot of weight. But I'm doing my very best to work through these, and I was originally used trying to hit pan on everything and then work from there, so I was eventually able to hit pan on everything in here, and I was also continue working on that NYX shade because it was really good blending out shade for me, and I think that is one that has moved the most to start with. And then eventually I did also Franken this palette again, like I said, and I used both the NYX shade and that Champs shade in those Frankens, and I had very little left of the NYX cream shade at that point, so I ended up using that up. But again, it's not completely done until those Frankens are done. But I was also able to hit pan on everything, and since that point I have just been working really hard on expanding those pans and eventually finish them. And I was able to finish one of those shadows recently, which is the shade Bombay on the second row in the palette. I really love that shade, and it was one that I worked on a lot in the summer. At the last update, this is what the palette looked like, and I did decide that I had a couple shades in here that I wanted to focus on, especially to finish. It's 5 shades in here that I have as my main focus now, but I'll talk you through that in a second. And this is what the palette looks like today. I do feel like I have some really good kind of pan expansion and everything in here, so I'm very proud with that, and I'll talk you through each shade and usage now. So yeah, very happy with this palette. Again, this is the overview. I do feel like the pans have expanded quite a lot in those focus shades, and I will talk you through which those are in a second, but let's go through them in order again. So first up in the palette we have the shade Cinnamon Sugar from Terra Moons. This is actually one that I did not reach for at all in the past month. I have decided this is not one that I'm gonna kind of focus on to finish, so I am used to using those shades that I have put in that category whenever I feel like them, whenever I have a look that goes with them, and this one did not gonna use this past month, but that is okay. However, the shade next to it, which is called Pilkiskovi or something like that, is Polish and I'm not very good at it, but that's from Glam Shop. It is that blue iridescent shade. I have reached for this one 13 times in the past month, and this is one of those focus shades that I talked about. With those shadows I have a goal to reach for them 10 times each, and I will try to do that every single month until the finales, because I do want to get as much use out of those shadows as I can. But I'm really happy that I was able to surpass that 10 use goal with this shadow, and I feel like the pan has expanded quite a lot in this shade. I'm actually wearing this one as a highlighter today. I don't know if you can pick that up. It's like a blue purple iridescent shade. It is quite sparkly, so I probably wouldn't wear it too often, but it does work nicely for filming, or if I want to go for a bit more of a glam look like I am today. And I'm also wearing this one on my inner corners today, so that counts as 2 uses, but it is the first time I use this as a highlighter. But yeah, very happy with the progress on this shadow, and it's one that I'm hoping that I will be able to expand quite a lot in the upcoming month too. Then lastly, on the top row in this palette we have the shade Bismuth from the Pastel Roses, and this is another one of my focuses. I do have quite a decent pan in here, and I also have quite a little product around it. Both these shadows, which are these two right here that I talked about as my focuses, are quite low in the pan, so I think that is why the pan is expanding quite quickly and why I'm still hopeful to finish them. This one I reached for exactly 10 times in the past month, so I was able to hit that goal, so super pleased with that, and similarly to the other one, I'm just hoping to continue expanding that pan in the next month. Then, like I said, we had the shade Bombay on the second row, but that one was already done. It took me 74 uses to finish, but I'm going to skip over that because it was, like I said, already done at the last update. Then we have the next 2 shades on this row, which are both focuses. First up, we have the shade Starlight from the Pastel Roses, which is a beautiful kind of... It has like a pink base, like a pink mauve base with just neutral kind of cool tone sparkle. If anything, it leans kind of like bluish greenish, but it's very cool tone and a very neutral kind of shift, I would say. It doesn't come off as like very colorful or anything, which is why this one is a super easy everyday shade. But in the past month I reached this one 10 times as well, so I was able to hit that goal just about. I reached that goal yesterday, so super pleased, and the pan I think has expanded quite a lot. I think in all of these focus shades they have expanded a lot, at least from when I looked at pictures, but you will be able to see it better here. So super happy with that, and this is another one that I'm going to keep pushing with. It is one of the shades that I have a bit more product in compared to the other focus shades. I think this one and Bismuth has the most shadow left. So we'll see if I'm able to finish it or not, but I'm going to really try. It is actually one of my favorite eyeshadows in my collection, but I do have a dupe of it from Terra Moons, which is why I'm happy to finish this shadow off. And then we have the next shade, which is from Glam Shop again. This is the shade Laser, and I'm wearing this one on like my lower lash line here today. And that is actually 10th use, so I was just about able to hit that goal today. And this is another shadow that I feel like has expanded a lot in the past month. I am really happy with the progress, and I'm getting, like, it's getting harder to use. I am considering repressing the shadow in the next month. I am gonna, like I said, do a Franken video anyway with my BYOP, and I think while I do that I might go ahead and repress the shadow. And I don't know if I'm going to repress anything else in here. I think that one might be the only one for this month that I want to repress, because it is again getting quite low and the pan is really big in the shadow. And just because I feel like if I use this one on my nails and stuff like that, it will be easier if it's a bit like more flattened out and even in the pan. I might do that, so you might see this one look very different next month, but that is where I'm sitting with it right now. All right, let's move on to the last row, which we have these 3 shadows right here. Again, this one is a cream shadow, which is kind of empty, but we're going to talk about these 2 next, which are not focuses, but I have reached for them 1 time each. So we have Vegas Bliss, which is first, that is from Glam Shop. I reached for that one once, which is actually today. I'm wearing this one on my lids today. It is my main lid shade on the center of my lid. I do have a different shade on my outer corner, and obviously on my inner corner I was wearing that Pale Discovery shade, but otherwise I'm wearing Vegas Bliss on my lid today. And then the second shade is Starburst from the Pastel Roses, which I also have reached for 1 time. So 1 time each on those 2, and I'm not expecting that to be a massive pan expansion or anything, but I'm just happy that I got some use out of them. And then the next Depotted shadow I am waiting to finish, or I'm waiting to count up all the uses when I finish a Franken shade in my Soft Glam palette. But for now I have used it 79 times plus all the Franken uses. But you will hear the grand total of that as soon as I finish that Franken, which fingers crossed is going to be next month. Spoiler alert for my goal there, but yeah, that is hopefully going to happen in the next month. Then we have my 3 Colourpop shades right here. We have the shade Kaleidoscope here, which I have not reached for at all. Then we have the shade Prima Drama here, which I had finished before and it took me 28 uses. And then lastly we have my last of my focus shadows, which is the shade Champs, which was originally from the Yes Please palette. And this is another one that I have reached for exactly 10 times, and I'm wearing it for the last time today. I'm actually wearing it as a blush today, which is how I've used it a couple of times, because again I've been doing more cool tone looks, so it's been harder to incorporate in my crease and stuff like that, which is where I normally reach for it. But I really do like it as a blush, and it's wearing down the pan quite a lot, like evenly. So I don't know how much the pan has expanded overall, but I can definitely see that the shadow is getting lower, and I think I will continue using this one as a blush because it does use a lot of product. But I will, like I said, also use a little bit of this one to Franken with Mulberry for a new Franken in my Panda palette. So that is what this palette looks like now. I'm really happy with the progress again, and I am hopeful I can finish my focus shadows. I think it's gonna take a lot of work, but yeah, I am hopeful. Maybe not all of them, but at least a couple, which will be very exciting. So before I talk you through the goals for the next month, I'm going to go through the weight loss. I'm going to start off with Anastasia Soft Glam palette. So this one had an advertised weight of 10.36 grams, but I did have, after last year's usage, a remaining weight of 3.75 grams left to finish, and that would mean that I have to finish 0.31 grams per month to be on track. And at the introduction of this year, it weighed 156.09 grams, and then in quarter 1 I was able to finish 0.57 grams, which really isn't that much, but I feel like the weights are quite off in the first 2 quarters, especially of the year, with this palette, just because I think humidity and stuff, but it was just very off. So keep that in mind, because in quarter 2 I was only, according to my weight and scales and stuff, only able to finish 0.11 grams, which I don't think is accurate, but that is what the scale said. And then in quarter 3 I was able to finish 0.90 grams, which again I think is a bit more accurate, but still not 100%. But that is kind of what the palette looked like at that point. And that is last month, and in September the palette weighed 155.46 grams, and today it weighs 155.05 grams, which means that I was able to finish 0.41 grams in the past month, which I'm super happy with, and that brings me to a total use of 1.99 grams, so almost exactly 2 grams used in this palette. And that brings me to the BYOP. This one doesn't have any advertised weight. Well, I guess I could tally up all the singles, but I didn't, and also some of them already had quite a bit of use, so I don't have anything to go off when it comes to that. But at the introduction of this year, the palette weighed 155.73 grams, and in quarter 1 I was able to finish 1.74 grams, so very happy with that number. That is basically almost 1 full shadow if you average them out. Then in quarter 2 I was able to finish 1.11 grams, so not quite as good, but still pretty happy with that number. And in quarter 3 I did my best quarter so far. I did 1.83 grams, which I was again very happy to see. So in September, so last month, this palette weighed 150.03 grams, and today it weighs 149.46 grams, which means that I was able to finish 0.57 grams, so just over half a gram, and that brings me to a grand total used in this palette of 5.25 grams, which again very happy with. And I do kind of have an unofficial goal each month to finish 1 gram between the 2 palettes, and I haven't been able to do that a lot, and I think that's mainly because of the discrepancy in the soft glam weight. However, this past month I got to 0.98 grams, which is very, very close to that of 1 gram, and I am happy with that. I feel like that is a, you know, pretty good accomplishment, and I feel like it's also more accurate. I think the soft glam palette has finally kind of, you know, average out when it comes to the weight. I think it is showing up as more accurate now, but very happy with basically a gram used over the past month, and that is where I'm sitting with the 2 palette weight wise. So the last thing to do is to talk through the goals, and we're going to start off with the soft glam palette. The first goal is of course going to be to finish that shadow. I think that's going to be no issues, but it is going to be one of the goals. And then I also want to finish up the Franken here in Sienna, which is between Rustic and the cream shade from NYX, because if I finish that I will have that cream shade finished. And then apart from that, I will of course do some more Frankens, and I will focus on Rustic and Cypress Zombie quite a bit, because I will definitely try to finish these two. I will do my very best for Mulberry too, but if I don't finish that one, it's not the end of the world. But I will 100% want to finish these two before the end of the year, so that is what I'm going to focus on next month. But yeah, finishing the 2 Franken shades in here are going to be my goal. And then for my BYOP right here, I am going to keep the same goal, which is going to be to use all of the focus shadows 10 times each. So that is Pilkoscovy, Bismuth, Starburst, Starlight, sorry, Laser and Champs. So these 4 right here, and then Champs. I want to reach for 10 times each. And depending on what the shadows look like at that point, I might try to finish at least one of those shadows too. I think realistically that's probably going to be Laser or Pilkoscovy, again depending on how far I get with them. If I can finish one of those focus shadows, that would be absolutely amazing, but I'm not expecting to do so. I will focus firstly on hitting that 10 use goal between the shadows, but if I at that point see that I have really, really good progress on one of the shadows, I will try to finish it too. We'll see. And I do again think I'm going to repress a couple of these. I will definitely repress Laser. Maybe I even want to repress this single right here, since I'm doing my Franken repressing video anyway. But you will see that when it comes up. It's going to come up later this month, but I will film it today or tomorrow. And we're just going to see what I end up doing with this one, but I will repress at least a couple of these shades. So that is going to be it for this update today. I'm really, really excited with the progress. I feel like I've had one of my best months with this project. I feel like there is really good palette expansion and a lot of finished shades and stuff like that in this past month. So that is obviously very fun to see. We only have 2 months left to work on these 2 palettes, which is a little bit scary, and I will try to get as far as I can with both of them. But this is when I'm really going to try to focus in and finish as much as I can. And that is also why I've done a lot of looks like this in the past couple of videos, because I am really, really trying to finish these 2 palettes. And obviously with the soft glam palette there is a lot of neutral mattes, which is why I've done like a lot of neutral looks with popper colors in the most recent videos, and you're probably going to see a lot more of that, because I do my makeup mainly for filming now, since I am at home on maternity leave and I don't really do any makeup to go to the office and stuff like that. So that is kind of where I would use my more neutral shades otherwise, and then I would do like fun colorful makeup on the weekends to film. But my life has kind of switched around a little bit now, and I'm doing more neutral looks for filming just so I can get through these palettes. But again, that is going to be it today. Let me know what you think I can do in the next month. Do you think I can hit my goals, and do you think I can finish some shades? I think that would be really good. I will again try to finish at least a NYX cream shade when I finish the Franken, and then maybe one more single for my BYOP, and then we'll see with the rest of the shades in my soft glam. But I'm going to wrap it up here. I hope you guys are having the best day wherever you are, and I'll catch you in my next one. Bye guys.